Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sawcruhteez Streamz, and I am your host, Sawcruhteez. Really excited to be looking at some charts today. There will be plenty to talk about. Who knows how long that this will go for. Something that I am going to try to implement in the future is figuring out how to do some timestamps so that I can make it very clear when I'm going over which markets, so that if you're only interested in one or two, then it would be a lot easier for you to be able to check in on what you want to see without having to sit through a extra long show, which seems to be happening more often than not lately. So if anybody out there does know how to do that, I mean, I'm sure it's pretty simple. I'm sure I can figure it out on Google, but help is always appreciated. So I will be going ahead and going into screen share here. I did have a great afternoon. I got to do one of my favorite things. I went hoodie shopping and just absolutely crushed it. I mean, I got at least 5 hoodies, maybe more than that. I think this may be my new favorite one. Got nice two-tone color, my favorite color, blue, so that's sure exciting. Only problem is that there's no room to have a tie. It's a little too high cut, but that's okay. You'll get to see me in some new hoodies here moving forward, so that'll be definitely fun for me. I like this is the time to shop for hoodies as far as I'm concerned. This is when they are undervalued and the market is going through liquidations, and that's exactly what was going on. They were all on sale. I think I only paid full price for one of them. So a little tip out there for anybody who enjoys hoodies or winter clothes. Right now is the time to be buying. All right. So things are sure getting interesting. We are absolutely ripe for a sharp move one way or the other. When I am looking at this chart, I am seeing that big move can happen in a very short amount of time, and it could happen at the drop of a dime. And we do see that price has continued to consolidate above the 200 period moving average, which was definitely not what I wanted to see. I mean, at least it didn't keep shooting up and getting away from me, but I really wanted a reaction either in here or off of this guy to bring us back below that 200 EMA. If that happens, then we should definitely get a sharp move to the downside. Like last time, if you get really close to getting a golden cross and it doesn't happen, then look out below. That is my strong opinion. Whereas if you consolidate on top of these moving averages and get a golden cross, I mean, that is a beautiful buy signal. You hear me talk often about not wanting to buy if the price is overextended from a moving average, and this is would be ideal if these cross, but you cannot front run anything. You can't expect them to cross. Back in here, it sure looked like they were going to. What about right here? How close those things got and just stayed there. I mean, this was maybe a nervous wreck. I'm on the edge of my seat for how long? Days, just not knowing what in the heck is going to happen here. So keep that in mind, that even though it looks like probably in most people's mind that this is like 90% probability of crossing or more, in my mind, there's still definitely a decent chance that we break down. And it would have to be very soon, that's for sure. Probably here, we're about 2 hours before the daily close, and that breakdown would need to really happen, I would say, in the hours following that daily close. If 12 hours from now we are still up here above 10,400, then it sure seems like those will get across with how sharply this 50 is angled up. It's coming in hot. So what have I done? I absolutely have stop losses in place. I am very, very confident that if we take out 10,900, then we will get a golden cross. And like I said, we could get a big move in the blink of an eye. And therefore, I absolutely would not feel comfortable in this position without a hard stop on the books. I really hesitate as much as possible to put hard stops on the books. I really do not like it, and that's why I like the moving average crossovers as signals to enter and signals to exit, because you don't need stop loss on the books, and it's just managing that manually is something that I strongly prefer for a number of reasons, primarily due to the traps that occur day in and day out in this space, and specifically depending on what exchange you're on, anything can happen. If you've got a hard stop on the books, it's just too many times I've gotten burned in like a 1 minute candle, or sometimes a 1 hour candle, where it shoots up, takes out my stop, and comes back down. And maybe it only happened on the exchange I'm trading on. These are the things that just get really, really frustrating. And through experience, I have really come to value being able to trade without hard stops on the book, and just being able to manage those manually, like I have been doing throughout here, of really watching close and hoping, but not doing anything outside of what I planned on when I entered this trade. So that's what I have confidence in my ability to do this, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone out there who doesn't have a good amount of experience trading, because time and time again you will be hoping for this to come down, and as soon as it starts coming down, now you really get excited, and you are not as emotionally ready to take stops when you absolutely need to. When it's moving in your favor, you want to hold on, and when it's moving against you, you may kind of get really nervous and freak out and want to basically buy at the worst times. If you're short and you're having a stop loss, and it's really moving against you, you have to be able to know what your exit signal is, and you have to have the ability to wait for that to come through. If you can do that, then I definitely think trading Bitcoin without stops is the way to go. But for the large majority of people, I really do think that having a hard stop on the books is going to be the best way to do it. And the parabolic SAR is my favorite way to have a hard stop loss on the books. So definitely give that some thought if you haven't already, in terms of looking at it on the daily, maybe the 3-day, maybe the weekly. See what lines up with the time frames you're trying to trade, because if you are needing a hard stop loss on the books, the parabolic SAR has an uncanny ability to not get whipsawed and trapped in and out like we're seeing here. Like, this is so rare. How often do you see this out of the parabolic SAR? Very, very rarely, where there's only, you have a string of SARs, you break it, and then you almost immediately re-break it on a whipsaw sort of trapping situation. This is very rare, and this was a beautiful trap right in here that absolutely scared the crap out of me. We see that this came down and broke this SAR after a long string, and now I'm really feeling good that this thing is going to continue down below this moving average. And if that were to happen, I was confident that it would make a significant move in my favor. And instead, what happened is it immediately reversed and took out this SAR, and when it took it out, it was like right at the top, right at the top of this move, essentially. Not the peak, but certainly if you use that as a signal, it was a bad chop right here. And that's what'll happen. And at a certain point, you kind of just have to come to appreciate these traps that happen, because I mean, it's just, there's something that is very, very beautiful about this right here, whether or not you think it's completely manipulated or completely natural, or somewhere in between. When you get a market that does something way out of the ordinary, it's going to really cause a lot of damage to a lot of people. I mean, this had to be a very common stop loss right up in here, and that wiping out and then immediately reversing after breaking this SAR right here. I mean, that's something that is to be admired, in my opinion, because that is rare. And if that is one big whale, then holy crap, what a good trader, right? I mean, if this is one whale or like a team of whales that were able to orchestrate this, then that is a big skill as far as I'm concerned. Say what you will about manipulation. If it's possible to do it and there's money to be made doing it, then there's people trying to do it. And there's a lot of people trying and failing. I mean, imagine how many people have a lot of money and they think they're going to come in and move a market and they just get completely wrecked compared to when you get something like this where you have just a beautiful stop loss that's going to be very clear for a lot of people. After a big run, there's probably a lot of people interested in selling up here and then using this as the stop loss. And if somebody really did come in here and wiped all those out and then knew to sell hard once it got over here, because as soon as it got over here, there was a huge amount of supply, which is very rare. When you break through a boundary, generally, there's going to be, if there's not follow through, there's not going to be a bunch of people waiting to sell the crap out of it. Whereas that's what happened right here. There was a lot of sellers waiting to gain this liquidity right in here. And that was definitely, more power to them if that was a group. And if that's natural market cycles, I'm kind of in between. I think that it could be one way or the other. This absolutely could be a natural market cycle. I kind of have a weird view of the market. I view the market as like almost a living organism that is evolving day by day. And that whenever it has inputs, the market has inputs from speculators, market participants give the market input, and the market learns from it. That's what I believe. It's really weird how the market has an ability to recognize, just to take people's money. I mean, to recognize what maybe worked very well for a little bit, and it's like just imagine that the market is a beast or a living organism, and when somebody comes in and takes money from the market, that's like you prodding the bear, or it's like challenging the bear and even winning. And now the bear or the beast is going to not appreciate that even a little bit. And it's going to somehow come up with a way to now come back, and at least if it doesn't get the money back, it's going to make it a lot harder to keep taking money out in the same fashion. I really do believe that the markets evolve, and it's natural to a large extent, and I guess that's as far as I'll go into that. So right here, I do have my stop loss set above this candle. I could probably put it above here if we break through this consolidation, especially if we close above 10,703. That would really indicate that this market is ready to take another leg up. And I mean, if we spend, this is just so close to crossing that it needs to basically move down quick. And if that doesn't happen and it starts creeping up, then that is something that I will definitely be paying attention to. If it gets above 10,900 at any point, I'm out. So if there's anybody out there who wants to wipe out my stop losses, you know where to come and get them, because I just bottom line have to stick to my system. And if we get up here to 10,900, these things are, in my mind, like guaranteed to cross. Maybe we get another one of these situations where it's like another real nice trap that comes up here, and then instead of this, it's like one that's like boom, like way down. That would be, it would be very, very hard for the price to get to 10,900 and not get a golden cross here. So I'm very comfortable with a stop loss there, and I would be very uncomfortable if I didn't have a stop loss on the books. So I have been kind of keeping my eye on the parabolic SAR along with the TD sequential. It was starting to kind of show some signs that I was liking. We had this 1, 2, 3. None of them got below the 1. And also the SARs have remained intact. So what I've really been hoping for today over the last 12 hours while I'm out hoodie shopping, I'm hoping to come back and see that SAR is broken with the red number below a red. Didn't happen. But it's still, in my mind, the most likely for this to move right here. These SARs are close to the price. The price hasn't gone anywhere. And we're on red numbers that, well, I guess so. Really, it's the entry on the Tom DeMark indicator, as I understand it, is a red number below a red number, or a green number above a green number. So generally, the first one would be a 2 below a 1, but this absolutely did qualify as an entry just based on the Tom DeMark system, because it's a red number below a red number, a 3 below a 2. It doesn't necessarily matter that it's greater than the 1 as far as I understand it. How I like to trade it is to use the SARs as confirmation and also as a stop loss system that I talked about in yesterday's show with Gabriel, one that I call, I've tokened the SAR sequential because we use parabolic SARs and the TD sequential, and that is a method that I really do think is much better than either of these by themselves. Putting them together is absolutely a great way to trade, and that is how I'm wanting to trade if I'm looking to trade smaller swings and smaller time frames. So definitely give that a look if you haven't already. Gabriel wanted to take some other things into account and wasn't necessarily purely trading the sequential strategy. But next week, on next Wednesday, the tables will be turned, and I will be the one doing the live trading, and Gabriel will be the one asking me questions from his perspective, and asking why I didn't do this and maybe why I did that. And moving forward, it will be like an every other week where he'll go and then I'll go, and hopefully I think both will be very valuable to show what I think works, and then to let him trade with what he thinks is best, and to just look over his shoulder while he's doing that. That was a very common thing in poker. They're called sweat sessions, where I would just sit down and play, and somebody would look over my shoulder, a coach or somebody who I respected would look over my shoulder and tell me, "Hey man, why in the heck did you raise Jack 10 there? That shouldn't be in your in your pre-flop range, should it?" And then oh yeah, you're actually right. And that's a great way to learn. And also having somebody better than me sit down and play in front of me was just a tremendous way to see how this guy's handling his emotions, how he is handling the swings and the variance and the bankroll and all that sort of thing. So that's definitely something that I will be excited to do a lot more of in the future, because the reality is that's what I'm doing for you guys right now, but it's on such a high time frame that you can learn so much faster on lower time frames. Like right now, I've been walking you guys through my trade like every day. You're basically been looking over my shoulder as I've been trading, but the bottom line is how I am preferring to trade is that throughout the last month, there's been like one sell signal, like right in here, and then that's just been it. Now it's just been one entry. Now I've just been sitting back and waiting for the next signal to come through. So that absolutely, I think, will help people learn. But when we zoom this thing into the the 3-minute chart or something along those lines, maybe even shorter, now we can make a lot of trades in a very short amount of time, and that can really help to illustrate much quicker a lot of these important factors. So just a little bit of a shill for the new show I've got going on. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. So looking for the basically 10,450 to break down, and even on just a wicking basis. Don't need that to be a close, because what would happen if that occurred? If we broke down 10,450, I might have to adjust that, 10,437, which will continue going up each close. So if we break that down, what we have done is taken out this SAR, got another red number below a red number, and it would also be taking out a Bill Williams fractal. So that would be a lot in just a $100 move. You've heard me say it before, where often a $100 move doesn't mean anything in Bitcoin, but right now it means the world. So look we got a double Bill Williams fractal right here, and we'll walk through why that is. So right here we have a low that's higher than these two lows. So we have a down fractal, and we have a high that is higher than these two highs. So we have an up fractal. That's another nice trapping candle, a very small sort of Darth Maul, if you will. And those Darth Mauls will basically always create a double fractal, because by their nature, it's like these huge spikes that are above generally the prior two candles in the following two, and then same with the spike down. So that's kind of what we're seeing here, and I always pay very close attention. This, to me, is like a shakeout before a breakout. Could be up or down. this was, to me, a shakeout before going down, because it really trapped, it took the shorts out of their position. This trapped the shorts and the longs. I mean, it was a, I thought it was a 2 above a 1. Well, oh yeah, it was for a second. So it closed as a 1, but right when this was right here happening, we had a 2 above a 1 breaking horizontal resistance. So we had a bunch of buyers coming in here that got trapped in at the top, but it also wiped out shorts who were using that as their stop loss. So that, to me, looks like something that indicates the market's going to head downwards, because we got to an area where we should have had follow through, and the supply should have dwindled and the demand should have increased, because we're going up. We just broke through resistance. We just had some consolidation or a pullback. So like right here, we really should have continued. I would have expected myself. And since we didn't, that makes me think that, we got exhausted off of this. And now, if anything, I would expect that to tell me the price is going down. Here, this is kind of neutral. It's like, it could be either way. It's like you wipe out every, it's does the same thing to both sides, right? Where it runs up and maybe gets buyers trapped in at the top, and maybe wipes out some shorters who are using this as their stop, and then does the same thing down here. So it's just like a shakeout before a break up or down. So I pay very close attention to once this horizontal gets violated. Green for support, red for resistance. So these are the numbers for me right now. Once, and like I said, even on a wick, once we break above 10,685 or below 10,461, and I just want to double check where that SAR was. So yeah, I would verify that the SAR is broken, and if we came down below this line and the SAR was still intact, I'd just wait for that to break. So we might as well move that down. But keep in mind that in an hour and 40 minutes, this will accelerate to right about here. So in about an hour and 40 minutes, if this is still intact, we would expect it to accelerate basically right in line with the bottom of this doji. So that's why I'll just go ahead and leave that there. That's what I love to see, is SARs in line with boundaries, because often when it looks like a boundary is breaking, it's a fake out. But when there's a SAR that's getting broken when that boundary is breaking, then that leads me to believe that it's a much higher probability that the move is real. Okay. So, I mean, I'm just holding my breath, I mean, this is definitely would be a huge bummer if I had to get stopped out of this position up in here. If we break through this red line here, I will probably be exiting before that. So it is a little bit nerve-wracking when you're in this situation. You just want the market to make up its mind. The waiting is almost the hardest part. It's like, I'm fine with taking a stop, but having to wait for another day, having to wait for these candles to consolidate sideways, that's when it's kind of like, just do it already. Whatever you're going to do, just make up your mind and do it. That's how I'm feeling right now. So good maybe example of just the, especially when swing trading and holding on to positions for months at a time, this is the sort of situation that you just kind of have to become immune to. You have to know when it's time to sit on your hands and do nothing. You got to know. I mean, my biggest secret is just knowing when it's time to turn off the computer and, get out of the house. Because when I'm sitting here and I'm looking at the chart as it's going sideways and I'm waiting for something to happen, it just drives me nuts. Once I got the stop loss in place and I know that, if it gets triggered, so be it, then it's time to just go out to the golf course, maybe, go camping or something like that. That is a huge help anyway, that I can get away from the charts, just even for, a night or a few hours, and just, let the dice, let the cookie crumble. And there's nothing, I have no control at this point. I'm either gonna get stopped out, or I'm going to potentially find myself in a really neat position. And that is the hardest thing, specifically for somebody like myself who is a control freak. I hate feeling like I'm out of control, and that's what makes it so hard when I'm sitting here watching. I don't hate getting stopped out because I just know it's going to happen. But I do not like feeling like I have no control, and I've just got to let it happen. That is a difficult feeling. So there really isn't a whole lot more to talk about on Bitcoin because I just got to wait and see what happens. Let's go ahead and take a look at the daily. Now that looks very toppy. That looks very toppy indeed. You get the high and then above the lower high with a reversal candle followed by an inside bar reversal candle, exhausted candle, whatever you want to call it. Both of these are reversal candles, and specifically this inside bar with the lower high following this. That's the first, 3 candle setup for the Bill Williams fractal. Makes me want to pull up the 12-hour, see what kind of action we got there. Sure enough, just doji's reversal candle fractal. Where's this SAR? Way downtown. Okay, I wonder where the daily SAR is. Just broke through the bearish SARs, and now the daily and the 12-hour SARs are bullish. So are the 4-hour. Okay, so what I am wanting to do now, that reminds me of a really neat chart that Murad shared with me just yesterday, or maybe a couple days ago, so hopefully it won't be too much trouble for me to pull that up because it is, well, I don't want to go through all of our conversation live on air, so let's do this, and I think you guys will appreciate this. It will be worth the wait, I'm pretty sure. So as you know, Murad has been quite bullish throughout this action, whereas I have been on the other side of the fence, and we talked quite a bit just through Telegram and whatnot. So he gets to share his charts with me, and I get to share my charts with him, and on down the line. So I'm trying to figure out if I can find this stinking thing, and you gotta be kidding me. Okay, so we're gonna try it another route. Jesse Livermore bubble pattern, and I sure hope this has got to come up. This is not an uncommon chart. Gosh dang it. Jesse Livermore bubble chart. Keep in mind on this live chat in case anybody knows where that is, because it's very, very interesting. I cannot believe I can't find this. This was one thing that I definitely wanted to go over, and it's the accumulation cylinder, which is so unique. Let's see if that's a good one to search. Jesse Livermore accumulation cylinder. There we go. Beautiful. This is just what I'm looking for. Okay. Glad that I got this pulled up. Can we see that? Okay. Is it big enough? Hopefully. So notice how much this looks like a hyperwave. This is Jesse Livermore, who's widely regarded as one of the best traders ever, if not the best. If you haven't read it before, strongly recommend Reminiscence of a Stock Operator. I mean, one of the best books that I've read. Definitely one of my favorites. I mean, it is a great book, and it is covers a lot of Jesse Livermore's stuff. And this is a chart that he put together in like the 1930s, 1920s, like as the depression was like before the bubble popped in the Great Depression. There was a big bubble to the upside, and he put together Livermore's speculative chart, the all-important action of stock A. So you get accumulation cylinder with widening mouth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you take off 8, 9, 10. You could say like phase 2, 3, 4. It's interesting how his 9 has a less steep angle than 8. That's one area I disagree. And then notice how the 10, 11, 12, 14 is basically exactly like a 5, 6, 7 of a hyperwave. So in my mind, the hyperwave pattern is very, very real, and basically one of maybe the single most important pattern for bubble markets that just go parabolic. This is, like Business of Vintage says in the chat, a timeless chart. Like, this is something that I think continues to be prevalent and has never been more prevalent than it is today. So just keep that in mind right there, and know that these blue lines are drawn because of Murad. So, okay. So I have been, thinking that this trend line is long gone, and I'm actually glad to pull this back up because look at that throwback into that trend line. Beautiful. Murad is seeing it differently and has a good argument. So Tyler Jenks would say that you connect this breakout with the first major correction. You get a breakout, and then the first major correction, connect that right there. I've been using the weekly chart, and I strongly prefer the weekly chart for trend lines for a number of reasons, and it had me drawn it a little bit differently because of where the close came in on the first major correction on the weekly chart, whereas if you use the daily, this still has a chance. Something like, it's kind of hard to get the exact cylinder in there, and this is pissing me off. Okay, something like that maybe, where you just blew right through it there for a little bit. But it's very interesting how this could be the accumulation cylinder for Bitcoin. I still do think that that could be valid right here. I am much more inclined to draw it how I had it. We've got more touch points. We've got a clean throwback, and that's using the weekly chart, which I have found when there's a discrepancy that the weekly is best. But there is definitely an argument to be made for this action right here being this action right here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. I wish, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. Maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that's it, because this didn't return back down. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Like I said, to me, this just it looks too toppy. I just really have a hard time seeing this thing going up. And like I said, it really doesn't matter what I see or what I think. What really matters is what signals come in. But just look at these lower highs. Just each time we've come down here, it looks like we're getting another lower high here. And potentially I get wiped out of my position right before it moves in my favor. That would be a bummer. But if the EMAs cross and then recross, that could definitely provide a new entry depending on how it happens. So as far as I'm concerned, now that we have another touch point down here, this is really starting to look like a descending triangle. I mean, I don't see any way around it. And I really believe in descending triangles. Descending and ascending triangles are basically my two favorite patterns. I feel good saying that. I also love Wyckoffs. So let's just take a look at what the measured move would be if this does confirm, because it's big. And another reason why I'm really thinking that this market's heading down is because of the alts. I mean, the alts seem to be, Litecoin led the way on the way up. That's I watched it happen in real time, and it'd be very hard for somebody to convince me otherwise. But I was watching Litecoin lead this market on the way up, and now I'm watching altcoins lead this market down. I mean, alts just are looking so bad that for me, the best thing for Bitcoin would just be sideways while alts crash. But for BTC up and alts down, in the short term, that's just hard for me to see. In the long term, it's the what I expect, but I really only care about the short term. So if this thing confirms, we're looking at a $4,667 move. Instead of getting a calculator out, I'm just going to do another one. 4,600 and oh, we'll just say that's good enough right there. Which would be taking us below 5,000 if this pattern confirms. That'll be the target. And there are often times where patterns confirm and I kind of disregard the target, not with descending triangles or ascending triangles. Those are powerful patterns and they paint a very clear picture to me. It's just, lower highs and support getting exhausted. And when this support, this is a lot of people who are putting in a lot of money around here. And if that breaks down, that means they're going to be putting in a lot of money to sell, right, to get out of those positions if this breaks down. That's what happens with descending triangles. That's what they do. So I really trust in what this pattern is telling me. And this is definitely looking quite toppy to me. So I'm really hoping that we can make a move before I get wiped out of my position, because that would sure be awesome. That weekly's bullish. I mean, it's still a descending triangle, but that's a bullish candle coming down and kind of getting the pivot right here with the low and then two higher lows. And now this briefly took out the high of this candle. And that's another reason why that was such a beautiful trap in my mind, is I think that this is a big signal for a lot of people, and one that Ugly Old Goat talks about in terms of taking out the 2-week high after breaking down the 2-week low is potentially a very powerful sell signal. So that is definitely something that probably a lot of big money traders were paying attention to, at least in my mind. The higher the time frame that you zoom out to, the more people are trading with big money. If you've got big money to trade with, you've got a $10 million bankroll, you're not trading the 3-minute chart in Bitcoin. The market just doesn't have that liquidity, but you can absolutely trade a $10 million bankroll on the weekly. So that's what I see here is potentially why we saw so much supply where it didn't look like there should have been on the lower time frames, is because of this taking out the 1-week high after breaking down the 2-week low. So something that I've been paying very, very close attention to. Like I said, I have a huge amount of respect for Ugly Old Goat, and I have been learning a lot from him. I mean, his methods are very unique that I've never heard of anywhere, and they have been around for a long time. Like, he's been trading commodities for a very, very long time, and the methods that he uses work really, really well. So definitely give his website a look. Below is a link to his, an affiliate link to his newsletter. I strongly, strongly recommend it. He shares his trades in real time, and he makes sure to tell everybody not to share stuff. But in hindsight, I think it's okay, just as a bit of an advertisement. And definitely in his newsletter, he had on this day sell orders set right in here, or I think it may be in here. Basically just nailed that, and that is something that if you are a member to his newsletter, in real time he is sharing with you, like right when the price was here, he's saying here are my sell orders. So seeing that is just really awesome, and definitely I love affiliating for people that I really believe in, because you can learn more from him than you can learn from me. There's no doubt about that, and I would not affiliate for anyone that didn't meet that guideline as far as I'm concerned, at least if they're selling strategy and that sort of thing. So that being said, let's just go ahead and move forward to Ethereum, because that's really been the story for me, I think. It's just stepping down, stepping down, stepping down, just looking bad. Ooh, that's an interesting pop. Holy cow, does that mean that Bitcoin is going to get something like that? Often I talk about, I just was saying that alts are leading this market. So if we've got Bitcoin in a spot where it's, you know, stuck in this consolidation range and you're wondering which way is it going to break, above here or below here, looking at what alts are doing can be a really, really good way to go about it. And that is not anything that I like to see right here, because obviously I'm hoping that it goes in the other direction. So let's take a look at just basically what I've been seeing in terms of these. It's like on a stair stepper. Nope, nope. Okay. No matter what, if I turn my phone on vibrate, on my phone, it's on vibrate, and then it rings on my computer, and I can't get that. I could probably figure that out if I looked into it, but that does piss me right off. Okay. So we just see, I think pretty much the only tool we need right now for Ethereum is horizontals. Let's just throw on the daily, because it's like, that's like pretty much all that is occurring, is just, it's like horizontal after horizontal as far as I can tell. And you can take these back and see that these horizontals go back a long ways. And when you break down a horizontal that goes back a long ways, that is very, very important information. That tells you that it should be turning into very strong resistance. Similar to what I said about descending triangles, it's like as long as this was support and people are buying it, then it should turn into strong resistance after it gets broken down. And that's what I was expecting out of Bitcoin out of 6K. And that's what I would have been expecting out of Ethereum at about 200. And when that doesn't happen, when everybody's looking at this to become resistance and it doesn't, then you get huge moves. So here, it looks like we have successfully broken down 200. And now I'm just going to draw a couple horizontals to basically illustrate what I think is going to happen. Okay, let's try to, maybe this thing already broke. Yeah, probably. Interesting. Broke support throwback. Definitely wasn't expecting to see Ethereum through that trend line. So now we will see if that is how I want it to be drawn, and it sure looks like it. Pull up the weekly real quick. Kind of tough to see on the weekly. Yeah, that's interesting. I thought it was going to continue following that on down. Maybe it won't. So let's take a look at what I would be seeing if it does bounce. Lots of resistance at 176 is what it looks like. We could be coming off of a higher low. And that's definitely something to pay attention to. Let's take a look at another trend line in here. Be interesting to see if this guy holds. So what we have is the 50 EMA, horizontal, and SAR, and trend line. Seeing a lot of resistance right here out of Ethereum. Hopefully this was just a little pop that's going to basically close back down in here. That would be beautiful. Just a little shake up before a breakdown. That would be real neat. And that definitely could still happen. We have an hour and 16 minutes. We're running into resistance. I see a significant amount of resistance. If it does get through 175, my target would be the 200 EMA on the 4 hour, which is at 192. That would be a sell signal, and I may take it, I may not. I do have significant exposure short Ethereum, so that's what I would be thinking about if I didn't. Okay, so Ethereum, most important thing to me on ETH is this guy. 50 and 200 day moving average death cross for the first time since it was up around 617. And notice how right in here, it sure would have been a nightmare trading my system, you know, like it actually wouldn't have been too bad if you could have got in around here. That's why it's so important also not to get in when the price is extended from the moving averages, because basically the whole key about this is how it controls risk. And if you can enter like close to these moving averages, maybe on that wick, you know, maybe not because they hadn't crossed yet, but just say in theory that you could, and then the price goes in your favor, maybe you trim a little bit here, maybe you don't. But look, if you exit, it's like very close to where you entered. Very, very, very close. Like basically break even. Here, this probably would have been passed on because it crossed so far below, so you would have passed on that and potentially sold this first retest of the 200 EMA, and then again you potentially could have gotten out, you know, around the same price. And that's the whole key, right? What I just went through with you right there. That's why I trade how I trade, because if I'm getting good entries and I'm diligent, I'm not entering on these guys here, and I'm maybe, you know, getting something like the pull up and into is what I'm waiting for. Then if the EMAs recross, generally it's going to allow me to get out at a very, very similar price. And that is pretty much what we're seeing with my Bitcoin position. Maybe I get stopped out and it would be a bummer because it went in my favor, you know, a pretty good margin there. But if that happens, it's still going to be a very negligible loss compared to these moves that you can get. You know, shorting 630, you just deal with the headache because you know a big move is coming. We're dealing with the headache, and a big move comes, and we get long. And now let's see how that would have worked. Yeah, that would have been a tough one right there. Very tough one. I did recognize this as a bull flagging pattern. So I probably, well, I did take that. I did buy that. So there you have it. Okay. Weekly, potentially interesting. This looks a lot worse than Bitcoin on the daily, and that's just how it's been time and time again. Every time I look at ETH, it's just like, wow, this thing looks different. Except for when I pull it up today and you see the 4-hour popped, it's like, yikes. But for the most part, it's just been worse every step of the way. Like Bitcoin has that 3-candle kind of reversal pattern. Ethereum is on its 4th candle on the daily, and it's broken down this reversal candle, which is very important confirmation. When it breaks down that reversal candle, that is what confirms it. Until that happens, it's not. Basically, it's not even a reversal candle. It's just a candle. An unconfirmed candle is a candle. But once this confirms, that's very important. So let's just take a look back at Bitcoin really quickly, just comparing that. See how much different that looks? We're on our 3rd candle instead of our 4th. And we have an unconfirmed reversal candle. And I will call these reversal candles when they're unconfirmed. But in my mind, I'm waiting for confirmation. Without confirmation, there isn't anything to do about it. Nothing is signaled until this is confirmed, as far as I'm concerned. So it is a reversal candle, but it doesn't signal anything until it gets confirmed. ETH has confirmed it, and it's followed through. Not only is it broken down, but now the next candle is also below the prior one. So that's another good idea of what I mean by the alts are just looking so much weaker. When Bitcoin rallies, the alts rally less. And when Bitcoin pulls back or goes sideways, alts sell off more. And they really haven't had a whole lot of sideways in them, except for when they consolidate into a bearish pattern. So it looks like that price might be moving a little bit. Let's see if Bitcoin is following Ethereum. That would be a bummer. It sure looks like it's trying. So again, I just would look for the top of these candles. We've got just inside bar after inside bar following this guy, inside of this. So this one breaking above or below this one definitely would be significant. And I'm always looking, when we have tight consolidation, I'm expecting a big move. I'm always on guard for a fake out before that move comes. Like if this market is ready to make a big move and it's going to move up, then I would kind of expect a sharp, pull back to this 200 EMA, 10,300, and then boom, that just happens time and time and time again in Bitcoin and in a lot of other markets. Whereas if this market's consolidating tightly and it's going to move down, a move back up into here is quite likely, and that's basically specifically why I don't have my stop loss above this area. If we close above this area, I'd be wanting to get out, but just a wick above this area would be potentially what precedes a big move to the downside. So these EMAs are getting close. And again, it's just incredible how much different Bitcoin is from the alts. Like, they used to mirror each other and everybody talked about the decoupling. How long have people talked about that? We're seeing it right now. Literally, we're seeing it. And I'll show you why. Here's Bitcoin's 50 and 200-day moving averages. We haven't even tested the 200-day moving average on Bitcoin, right? And furthermore, let's get out of here. It's like unbelievable how long this platform will save these lines. I've probably deleted those lines 50 different times. If anybody knows how to permanently delete lines, I would love it. Okay, so let's just kind of get an idea of, if we go top to bottom on Bitcoin, it retraced to the 0.618 territory on this move here, right? So it got very close to prior all-time highs, hasn't even retested the 200-day moving average. Let's see what's different on Ethereum. Again, how many times have I had to delete those lines? We need some amount of history for this guy. We need those too. Where is the SAR coming from? Okay. So we're just going top to bottom. Look at that. Bitcoin got up here. Ethereum didn't even get here. That's decoupling, right? I mean, what else do you want? Ethereum has not only tested the 200 EMA on the daily, it has fully broken it down and gotten a death cross. The 4-hour, look at how long those have been bearish and what a strong trend you've got. Spread out and acting as resistance, very strong trend. Bitcoin hasn't even tested this guy and is on the verge of getting a golden cross here. Okay, so that's what I've been asking myself, is if these alts really bite the dust, is that going to send Bitcoin to the moon, or is it going to send it, potentially back down to some lower numbers than people are expecting? And I'm very open to both arguments. There could be a massive flight to safety. I mean, these market caps are huge. We're going coin market cap. There may be a better option out there, but I really rarely check this stuff because I just don't care. But if you look at these enormous market caps, I mean, not enormous, but very significant. If this money was to flood into Bitcoin, would that, really be like gasoline on the fire? It's like something somebody already wants a lot is Bitcoin. And then if you add on top of that, people flying to safety out of these coins that are just been dumping, that are basically, they're all looking like Ethereum, and nobody's ready to believe it, literally nobody. I've actually got a good chart that I'm excited to share with you guys. One second. Let's see. Hopefully this will do it. It might not. Son of a gun. Somebody just posted a chart that's got thousands and thousands of views. Here we go. Calling for 20,000% growth in XRP, which would take the price up to basically 3 figures. So this is what a lot of people are seeing. Might happen. I mean, it might. If it does, I'd probably be along for the ride. I mean, if it does, I would have buy signals that, you know, I trade XRP, but I am highly uninclined to think that this is what's going to happen. So we've got this kind of like nobody's really seeing what's happening as far as I'm concerned. Nobody's, well, maybe a lot of people just don't worry as much about this as I would. Like for me, there's zero chance I would be long an asset with a death cross with the 50 and 200 day exponential moving averages. There's no way. That is absolutely a very strong indicator to me of a long-term bear market. So I'm not feeling like people out there are, this is what I want to see. If I'm short Ethereum and I'm getting a good sell signal, I don't want people to be afraid of it going down. I want people to be thinking that alt season is around the corner any day, which is what a lot of people think. There's some developments going on with Ethereum's transition to proof of stake, and they're going to be decreasing some supply, which is, if these prices keep coming down, they are really going to put their miners in a very difficult spot, and they're going to have a very hard time to remain profitable. And a lot of people are viewing, Ethereum's transition to proof of stake as bullish, and I'm exactly on the opposite side of the fence. And I just point to basically CoinMarketCap, and I say, show me the proof of stake coins that the market values highly, and they, aren't there. And I pulled up a chart. I made my own chart of like alts, like a group of alts, leading altcoins, Bitcoin, and then within those alts we had proof of work and proof of stake. And the proof of stake have been bleeding harder than the alts. So it's been that Bitcoin's been doing great. Ethereum has been doing worse, and Litecoin, like a lot of these large cap alts, have been doing worse at every step of the way. And then who's been doing even worse than that is proof of stake coins. So I think the market is wisening up that proof of stake is not blockchain. Proof of stake is just what we're trying to get away from with proof of work. It's as simple as that. The more supply that you hold in proof of stake, the more control that you have over the network. And when somebody like Vitalik Buterin and his friends own all of the supply, they have all of the control. It's which is fine because it wasn't decentralized to begin with, so you might as well make it less decentralized. But I think the market is starting to pick up on that. The real innovation is blockchain, and blockchain is proof of work, and the application for proof of work as is available right now is for money, and you don't need any more than Bitcoin. So hopefully what I'm seeing right here is going to lead to what I am expecting, and we're just going to go through a couple alts to see if they have the same death crosses. And this is what I have been seeing, is that XRP has been leading ETH, which has been leading Bitcoin. And we do see, like on Ethereum, it had an extra candle after that topping pattern. It had the reversal, and then it confirmed the reversal, and then it had another candle. So it's like a whole day ahead. And then here we see that XRP, the death cross came in well before, it was July 22nd. Compared to August 25th. So XRP is like a month ahead of Ethereum, because it's probably that much more obvious how bad of a coin it is. So definitely keep an eye out for these leading indicators. And if you're wondering if Bitcoin's going to get across one way or the other, and you can look at other coins and view them as leading indicators, then potentially that can give you a huge edge. Litecoin, death cross. That looks like a selling opportunity to me. We're pretty darn close to that. and affiliate link below for evolve.markets. That is where I will trade alts versus USD on margin. You can short Litecoin against USD on margin on evolve.markets, and I have been short Litecoin versus USD on evolve.markets since right here. And that was a trade I shared live. So I'm more than happy to point to it in hindsight and say that I am still holding on to that position, and I trimmed a little bit, and I'm a very happy camper to continue holding on to it, specifically due to this action right here. So if you are interested in trading alts against USD, Evolve, affiliate link below, would appreciate it if you use that to support this channel. They do also have traditional markets available. So is there any other alts that we just want to check? Oh yeah, Bitcoin Cash. How could I forget about the... I'll just keep it to myself. Okay. Boom. I mean, like this is what I'm looking at here that is just across the board telling me alts are going down. And there's confirmation just from the market isn't freaking out. You know, the market is not in denial as far as I'm concerned. This is denial. Like for me, alarm bells have been rung for a while, you know, weeks, if not a month on like XRP. And those alarm bells, when they get rung and, you know, and nobody seems to care, that is denial. And it can happen to the upside or the downside. When you end a bear market and you start rallying up and everybody's calling it a sucker rally, then you know, can get a big reaction to the upside. And same thing that happens down here due to that denial is just kind of what I'm thinking. We got this cross and now we've broken down support. Now we've thrown back and retested that. I am probably going to go take out a position on this myself. You got to do whatever you want to do with your money. But for me, this is a pretty darn sweet setup. Risk reward is excellent. We're not all the way back to the 200, which would be far preferable. But with this horizontal and trend resistance, and I mean, is there anything, there's basically nothing more fun than longing Bitcoin, and a strong competitor may be shorting Bitcoin Cash, because when it bites the dust, I mean, it does it in a big way. You know, this was some sort of fork, I think, that was happening or whatever, but, you know, this thing, this is a big bear trend, and it looks like, so notice how, this is what I call a peek through. When you get these kind of peek throughs, it's like you got the death cross and the golden cross and the death cross. That peek through generally tends to precede big moves. So that's why you have to understand that. And when you are getting frustrated, if you're trying to trade the system and you are getting chopped in and out, you just have to remember that I just need to keep taking the signals, because one of these signals is likely to lead to a big move. The more you get these peek throughs, the more I expect a big move. And that's we got here. It tried to make the golden cross, and that's a peek through, and tells me that if we can maintain this death cross, okay, so don't do anything that you are not willing to assume the proper risk, but right here I'd be looking at a stop loss around, you know, and again, I don't like hard stop losses, so I'd likely be managing this myself to avoid getting wicked out. I would be waiting for a cross, and we'd be looking at around a 17% risk, which would tell me I could use about 3 or 4x leverage and feel comfortable. Maybe a little bit less, because this market, Bitcoin Cash specifically, just has these ridiculous wicks. And then the downside would be tough to measure, but I mean, let's go ahead and take a look, because I haven't looked at this in a long time. So I would be just kind of expecting a return to prior horizontal, a dead cat bounce, and then a real breakdown. and what my game plan would be to, trim, since this would be very far away. If this gets down here to, 75, $80 from 297, that would be such a big move. That'd be trimming like 50%, maybe even more, to lock in a nice profit. Then if everything lined up right, I might try to re-enter up in here. Maybe it just goes sideways and gives us a nice head and shoulders. That would be beautiful. We could pull back down here and go sideways opposed to bouncing. That'd be much more bearish. And then that makes me think, is this a head and shoulders? Yeah, I'll call it that for sure. Head, shoulder, shoulder. Okay, so that's what I would be looking for. And my sign that alts are like dead and not going any lower, it's not going to be that everything's at zero across the board. But what I would be looking for is some major exchanges to go out of business. These shit token exchanges that have made a killing trading, offering shit coins and then investing in them themselves in a lot of situations. That's what will need to be no longer profitable, no longer viable. If somebody like Binance or Bittrex has to close up shop because the volume and the price of altcoins is so low, now that tells me we're really at a point where this market has capitulated. And often you will get comebacks after capitulation, but not with things that have no value. That is when you expect them to go to zero. The markets dry up, the exchanges go away, and if Ethereum bites the dust, I don't see any way that like 90% of them don't as well. Okay, so what else? We really don't need to be looking at. The whole point here that we want to make is that all of these have death crosses, recent death crosses with price near. Okay, on the daily, which is huge. And we'll go ahead and pull up ETHBTC, Poloniex. Let's see what happened when it got a death cross. Yeah. And I have been publicly shorting Ethereum since up in here. That was when I had maybe 100 followers and is a while ago on Twitter. So if you really want to go check it out, there might be a post or two on TradingView as well. But look at this signal, pull up and into, and then broke down horizontal. One of the clearest shorts I've seen in a while. Bitcoin was in a bear market, and Ethereum was in a bear market, and therefore I really expected Bitcoin to gain back value. We were coming off another lower high, and managed to eventually go on to form the biggest descending triangle that I've ever seen in crypto. I can only think of one bigger anywhere else, and that is General Electric. Which, I mean, people that are so convinced altcoins aren't going to zero, major U.S. companies go to zero. I mean, having any sort of confidence that it's not going to happen to a large majority of alts is just insane to me. Like GE might end up going to zero. Deutsche Bank might go to zero. And it's, it's almost just a matter of time. What company do you think is going to be around forever? I would think that Bitcoin is going to be around forever, similar to gold, because it has the most important it shares in the most important properties of gold, as long as we can keep, the electricity alive. But basically, you see how there's these kind of peek throughs, whipsaws that right here you would pass on. You might get chopped in around here, but you just lose a little bit. And then as long as you keep taking signals, you can get these huge moves. Okay, so wanting to zoom in just a little bit. I think there may be an opportunity coming up to sell this thing. So still targeting a return to 0.008. Maybe we should make it 0.075 because that is a pretty nice number. And one thing that I did want to show is that for the first time ever, I'm pretty sure, we had a death cross on the weekly. So we see that we just now had enough data on Poloniex, and I don't know if there's a longer term exchange. I don't think that there is, but we just now had enough history to get a 200 week moving average. And as soon as that happened, like as soon as that showed up, right here, it was like just in time to illustrate a death cross. And I absolutely did notice that. And that is one of the reasons why I've been so confident in this position is this enormous descending triangle. Like I said, I trust in these as much as any other pattern. And this death cross for the first time on the weekly that just started. Like this shows me that we have just started to kind of make a move, that we're not anywhere close to the end of it. So we'll go ahead and pull up the ADX. I am going to meet with somebody here soon about developing my own. The main reason is just because this is so confusing and everybody's always asking me which one they want. But in reality, I also do have a couple of improvements that I think I can make just to make it a little bit better. So I am going to be talking to somebody about that. I want to pull this up to see. This does show us in strong trend territory. It's tough not having much history, but it looks like it can get all the way up to here. I wonder, I just don't know how that would happen. So this does look, what I would be looking at basically is, looks like it's kind of trending with a higher high. And if we can move up to here, that's about where I'd expect it to roll over. So it looks like still plenty of room there. And we're going to see that RSI is just completely wrecked. It's been a pretty darn good buy signal every time it's got down around this 20, 30 area. And now it's just wrecked. Okay, so what I'm looking at is I do think that there's a little bounce coming, which has been pretty rare, and each time it's happened, it's provided a great selling opportunity. Oh, come on. So I always keep an eye out for a long string of these SARs. Notice how this is a very long string. And after long strings, we expect a correction. And that's what I've been kind of watching for here. Is if we can break through this trend line and this SAR, then we should at least return to this 50 EMA on the 4-hour, and that could be an area to sell. We haven't returned to the 200 EMA on the 4-hour in a very long time, all the way throughout the trend. I almost never see this. It tells me maybe I should adjust it for this asset, because what we want is for the small corrections to find resistance at the 50 EMA and the major corrections to find resistance at the 200. It works so well with the 50 and the 200 in so many markets that I almost never have to change it. But anytime I see that either the price is consistently getting above the 200 and then coming back, or consistently getting finding resistance before, like we see here and here, and that it hasn't returned, and here and here, and it hasn't returned once, that tells me I should probably go ahead and adjust it. And it doesn't help me for anything back here, but it could definitely help me on this next correction. If we do blow through the 50 EMA, then I need to know where would the next EMA be that I would expect to resist. And I can't say it's the 200 like I would 9 out of 10 times, because it hasn't happened once yet, and it clearly looks like it's respecting a different. And just tells you, that goes to show how hard and fast this thing is selling off. It can't even return to the 200 EMA on the 4-hour. So let's try like the 128. And I'll make it black. If I leave it the same color, I'll forget that I changed it and think I'm looking at the 200 when I'm not. Ooh, look at that. Bam. Missed it there. Missed it there. Nailed it there. So I like that way better than the 200, but it's still not ideal. I want to see the same one really nailing, consistently. And if it does get above, it quickly comes back below. I think I like this, just 100. So like this is, I much rather this than the 128, because we have price above the moving average, which is a sell signal. And then we have it hitting it here, which is a sell signal. Opposed to before, we only had it touching here and not hitting here. So I much prefer this action here. And then look, we resist it beautifully here. We come up, we try to get the golden cross. Price is squeezing in between. It tries, doesn't happen, and dumps. Boom. Yes, this 100 is beautiful. Can't remember last time I used a 100 moving average. This is perfect. And this is a great example of why I like to trade the way that I do and exactly how I dial in my moving averages. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be 50 and 200 on every time frame. I'm talking 3 minute, 1 minute, weekly. But sometimes when I just notice that it's not working, time to dial it in. And you see how I did it. Because I want to make sure that if the price is getting through the 50, that it's finding resistance. Like notice how often it's resisting the 50, resist 50, resist 50, and when it makes it through, now I can target this and use that to sell. Here we resist 50, boom, now I target this. So the small corrections find resistance at the shorter term EMA, and the big corrections find resistance at the longer term EMA. And if we have an EMA with just one perfect touch point here and no more down here, I'm going to adjust that down because this is fine with me. This is like perfect. I like seeing a fake out above a moving average that's important and then a breakdown very quickly. Like I'm hoping to see in Bitcoin right now. So yeah, this is beautiful. I'm definitely going to be using the 50 and 100, and that is, like I said, I can't remember the last time I used the 100 for a longer term correction. And what that tells me is that there is just these dead cat bounces are very dead. You know, you would want to see dead cat bounces returning to the 200 EMA on the 4 hour so that you could sell those. And when that doesn't happen, it tells you that it gets exhausted beforehand, and there's just, you know, nobody stepping in to buy. I mean, at least in relation to Bitcoin, if we get a rally, it's just provided great opportunities to sell, and potentially doing something like entering 20% on a test of the 50 and like 80% on a test of the 200 or 100, I mean, would be a good way to go about it, or maybe 30-70, something like that. I like to have my bigger orders at the better prices so that if it does blow through this and I got a piece of it, now I can improve my cost basis to up in here, which means I'm going to be having an easier time getting out at or around break even. All right. Stock market had a big day. And I really wish I would have done a show, I wish I would have been able to cover this yesterday because I was firmly expecting this. If I cared enough about what you guys think, I'd prove it to you with a message. But basically, I said in a private message yesterday, when we were right here, that this market looked very, very strong. I think I said it looks ready to explode. And my call was a return to test prior all-time highs before the end of the month. So that, you know, was private, and I'm just kind of saying it to toot my own horn because I would really like to see this happen right here. This looks like hopefully it's a breakaway gap. And what I did when I was seeing this is, so again, look, we've got, really these have been all basically major corrections, but we look down here, so we've got support at the 50 for a small correction. Didn't really work too good here. Yeah, but back in here, we do see it consistently having small corrections to the 50, and when it's in a strong trend, it's refusing to come back down to this 200 because there's just too much demand. So 50 is support, and then once we do have a major correction, this was a scary couple days for a lot of people, but bam, right there. And then this started to get scary for a lot of people, but look at that spread. And this is where it was getting scary for me. We're squeezing and coming down. If this broke down here, now that is major reversal signal. Here, I was calling bear market full reversal when this broke down and we got the death cross, and we did get a significant move. I did have significant short exposure for this move, but I was wrong. It wasn't the bottom. We got this broadening top pattern, which is how these are just so hard. You finally break down areas where you should really be ready to confirm a full-on reversal and bear market. And instead, what do? You whip back to all-time high and then correct as soon as you get back to all-time high. I mean, this has just been a very difficult market to trade. I want to know, you know, who has been trading this market profitably since 2018. I mean, I might have eked out a little bit, but I certainly only trimmed a little down here and had to then exit all the way back up in here, which is just very frustrating and rare to have that sort of V bottom that just doesn't look back. Very frustrating. So this has been a very, very tough market, but I do think that, I mean, what we had right here is, again, a return to the 200, resistance from the 50, return to the 200, resistance from the 50, return to the 200. Here, I thought we were breaking down. I thought that if we were going to rally, and I talked about this on the show, that basically if we were going to rally, I wanted to, what I was looking for was this kind of big W, like so. That's what I was looking for, and I was thinking the market was ready to explode around here, but I did say that this is the confirmation of the pattern, so that pattern never did confirm. But when it reversed and we got this candle, I was expecting it to continue to the downside, and I set stops right here. Very much front running. Well, not really, because this is the daily and I use the 4 hour. So it would have been pretty much right on point. So I set stop losses right here and was very happy when they didn't get triggered. And I started turning bullish again here because, again, it's this pivot. You know, the low reversal candle between two higher lows. So that, to me, is, now it is a fractal now that we have the today's close. Why in the world would not this be a down fractal? Let me think about this. We've got a low that's lower than all of these lows. Oh, I think this candle here needs to be higher than this. Interesting. I almost never think about that because I guess it's like almost always the case if I never have to think about it. Yeah, I think this candle here needs to have a high above this candle here. I never really think about that. Interesting how rare that must be to get this pivot without a kind of, you know, at least a 2 candle move down into it. You know what I mean? So when this happened, I became definitely quite bullish, short, medium, and potentially even long term. I'm very scared of the inversion of the interest rates across the board, but those can stay for a while, long enough for people to completely forget about them. So I put stop loss here, moved it up to 28.90, and am now expecting a return back up to here because even though this isn't a big W anymore, we've got a triple bottom instead of a double bottom, I still think it's we can effectively use the same target of breaking this horizontal boundary. Tells us that the target is a return to the prior high before that down move. So even though it's a triple bottom instead of a double, I do think we can use that as a target, and it is the 5th of September, so let's see if we are able to get there before the end of the month. And this is also coming at a time when gold is very much ready to correct. I think on Tone's show, and maybe even here, have been basically calling for exhaustion due to the weekly reversal candle and horizontal resistance. We got another major reversal candle developing. What is today? Thursday? Wow. This was the one that scared me. And again, look at what a beautiful trap this was. Oh my goodness. Orchestrated perfectly. It's like as soon as you take out the top of this shooting star, it's no longer valid. That's the invalidation point. This is where it becomes valid, breaking it down, and then it is no longer valid, at least as far as I'm concerned, once you get above that wick. So anybody who is looking to sell and go short off of this candle would have been using that as a stop, and look at how that wick just gets above and immediately reverses. I wonder what happened first. Did we break down 1518 or did we break above 1554 first? So we broke down after. Okay. It looks like we had this come in before the reversal candle confirmed, so it would have been much cooler if it was the other way around. Imagine if we fell down below here to confirm this candle and signal entries, and then we immediately reverse to come up and wipe out the stops. And maybe that did happen. I'll have to draw a line. It looks like we did get very, very close to threatening that before it went up to the upside. And that would be the best trap ever. Not ever, but basically a really good one. If you break down this and you confirm this short entry or selling entry, and it becomes a very good stop loss. I mean, that stop loss works, and I would absolutely be using that myself, potentially if I'm trading candles and feeling confident that if we took out that high, I no longer want to be in any sort of short position. I wouldn't be in any short position here anyways because it's entirely bullish. I would wait for some sort of reversal, like from the moving averages. But if I did, I would not expect this to get taken out and have us reverse. So imagine if we broke down, confirmed, and then came up, took that out, and then came right back down. I really hope that is what happened. And I guess, yes, it is. It is right here. That's awesome. So right here is where you just get short signaled at the exact worst possible time, and then you get stopped out at the exact worst possible time. That's what happens in commodities very often, not just Bitcoin. This type of stuff, the market's learned how to do this type of stuff in commodities long before Bitcoin was ever around. And that is as beautiful as it gets. How frustrating would you be if you sold that and then covered that? And then, oh my gosh, I just love seeing that. And again, it's like a broadening pattern, right? Much more so if this high was above this high. But we do have high above a high. So it'd be like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So potentially a broadening bottom. Fifth point on a broadening bottom right here. Interesting. So what have I done? I had set a partial stop loss below this candle. So I set that and I left it on the books as a stop loss in a traditional exchange. So I almost certainly sold at that exact worst time, but that's okay. It was just about, I want to say 15 to 20% of the position was entered to exit as soon as this reversal candle confirmed. Absolutely, I wasn't going short, I was taking profit. Huge, all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world, to where it doesn't really matter that weird stuff happened afterwards, but it doesn't matter because I'm in big profit, so who cares? I've been longing from this guy right here, pull back into a golden cross on the 4-hour, on the daily, on the weekly, bull flag, cup and handle. I was as bullish as I've basically ever been about anything right in here in real time on the Hyperwave channel. So now I have been stopped out of about 15 to 20% of that position in big profit, and now I will be trailing the rest of that. The stop loss will be trailed for that position using the weekly parabolic SAR, and I will potentially front run that. Look at that. Does it get any better than that? You blast through, you get the buy signal, and then it pulls back and into. Perfect. So either I'm going to be stopped out when the weekly parabolic SAR gets taken out, or when the 50 and 200 EMA is crossed. Whichever comes first, I will be taking that signal to go ahead and get out. I want to let trends go for as long as they can while they're in my favor, but I don't want to let them, retrace too much before getting out. 80%, 85% of the move is absolutely, what I'm going for. I'm not going for catching this bottom here. I'm not going to catch this bottom here because I wait for this, and even more. I won't really be buying until maybe up in here, so 10% away from the bottom or more. And then I don't want to be selling, if this is the top, then this is as close to the top as I want to be selling due to a reversal candle. Those reversal candles are what allow me to get out quicker than the parabolic SAR and the 50 and 200 EMA crossovers, but they are a lot harder. They're a lot trickier. You get a lot more that, you know, come up. Like, is this a reversal candle? Like, you've got to be very clear. In a shooting star and the inverse of that, a hammer, are my two favorite reversal candles. Well, we can go a step further and say a dragonfly. That's an even better, and then maybe a gravestone. But anytime you have a huge wick on top after a big run, like right here, it is, but it's not red. And there was still, we had just broken through major resistance. So I really wasn't concerned about that. That's much different than this. And then we follow it up with this like really weird, it's not engulfing because the body isn't engulfing, but it's the wicks are engulfing, and that's almost a stronger reversal signal than an engulfing, traditional engulfing candle in my mind, because of the nature of having two back-to-back shooting stars with the second shooting star that confirmed the first and provided a trap. Like I said at the beginning of the show with Bitcoin, if it's going to make a move down from here, I would be very unsurprised if it made a move up first. So if this is going to make a move down, it would make a lot of sense that it had some sort of trap before making a big move to the downside. So that is basically everything that I wanted to cover. I apologize that I haven't really been looking at the chat, just had my head stuck in the charts. And it looks like, I don't know, be scared and get out of your alt position now. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not telling anybody to do anything, but I personally, with those death crosses, I would not be holding on to any altcoins at all, and I am holding on to heavy short positions on them as a matter of fact. So I just want to take one last look to see if Bitcoin has kind of followed ETH or not. I like that. I like that. I really didn't want this to get broken. There's a couple areas that are very, very important to me right now, and that's the closing below this blue. And if we do get any wicks, to keep them below this red. So now that we see we've got a wick above, because we only had, you know, an hour left. If this thing really rallied hard into the close, then that would have taken out all of these, and I would have really been expecting to get stopped out. Whereas now we've got 30 minutes until the close, and what's happening is we've got a wick in our wick zone, and price is already back down below where we need it to close with 30 minutes left. That is very important. It makes me want to see if ETH is really showing signs of that it just had a fake out, which is kind of what I was, you know, really hoping for. Ooh, no, I need, that is sure an ugly chart. Jeez Louise. I think that sure does a good job of showing horizontals though, so let's just see if we can confirm our horizontals on the weekly. Interesting. This is why I like the weekly so much. It makes it so much more clear for horizontals and trend lines. Yep, that's how I would do it. Okay, now we're just going to take a quick look to see that 4-hour candle. Hopefully a nice wick on top. That would make me feel good. Yes. Yes, that is looking good. Just what I wanted to see. That was the area of resistance that I'd drawn out that we need to resist here. If it broke through 175, then I was going to be expecting a return all the way back up to here, which would be very bad for my Ethereum positions, and also it would be a very bad sign for my Bitcoin position. So getting this beautiful wick coming down, just kissing that 50 EMA, not even returning to that horizontal, that is exactly what I wanted to see. And I would want it to close below here. And if that were to occur, what I would be looking at after that would be breaking down that. Okay, so that is everything that I wanted to cover today. Hopefully the new hoodie will be providing some good luck for my trading moving forward, because I am a big believer that hoodies are good for trading. They keep you focused and in the zone and undistracted, and also warm and comfortable, which is very important on days like today when you're feeling kind of anxious and on the edge of your seat and wondering, you know, just waiting for something to happen, not really caring at this point what happens, but just wanting it to finally happen so we can, you know, just move on and not have to sit here kind of all anxious and whatnot. So thank you, everybody. for tuning in, for sticking around. This was about an hour and a half, which is the longest that I really want to do these shows. And everybody who sticks around for that long, I really, really do appreciate that. And we'll be looking forward to continue with these updates on a daily basis. I have gotten to a point where I will be resuming taking Saturdays off. And I did just get a text while we were on this show that I will be, it looks like, doing some camping on Saturday night and going fishing. That's one thing. I haven't gotten to do any fishing this year, so I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to get out there, catch a nice trout, and throw it on the fire, and that's really what makes a camping trip, really what makes it for me. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I will go ahead and sign off and look forward to seeing you tomorrow and then taking off on the week, on at least Saturday.